seems to be doing something with me.
Oh, that's funny.
Could
Uh,
you tag me, do you think, old chap, to
yeah,
my
yeah,
Facebook Live?
yeah. Let me
Thank
just.
you. Oh,
Yeah, I'll tag you right now. Yeah, that'll give us a little bit of time. It's 20 seconds into it. Yeah, yeah. I'm in. I'm 3 hours on the timeline from where I was, so it's a little bit more of a. It's not as easy to schedule something, but this worked out great. It's been 1 year since you had your heart situation, right?
one year tomorrow morning, yeah.
Wow.
And tomorrow morning I'll be doing the same thing. I'll be going for my 9 o'clock park run
Okay.
and see what happens.
And see what happens.
Yep, there you go.
There you go. I got you. Tagged you. Yeah. So, oh, Joe, you rascal. That's what they said. So, what's going
Ever.
on, man? Fill us in. Fill us
Well,
in.
I was going to ask you anything interesting been happening since the last time we spoke. Todd, what the hell is going on? Because,
Huh?
the last few months have been so interesting. Confucian saying, may you live in interesting times. I'm absolutely exhausted with it all, to be quite honest with you. You
Well,
know,
I can relate to that. And I know you are a recovered alcoholic, to whatever term we want to use. Uh, and I don't say this lightly, but I've had these conversations in the past. See, I went on a sabbatical, what, 3 weeks ago? So probably for the last 6 weeks. And they've been, look, if we can't get jiggy with this, because I'm running out of juice, then I'm going to go to Las Vegas, buy 12 cases of the most effective alcohol there is, and just do myself in and go out my way because this ain't making any sense. But I'm kidding.
yeah,
I do feel things moving along, and it's very strange to the human. And I say that, and I don't think people would disagree with that. There's just a lot of fluctuations in the field of the human being right now, and it's a bit trying, to say the
it is to
least.
say that. It is to say the least. And my theme is the joy of living is my theme. And in honesty, I found that difficult to find recently. The joy of living, because of my physical exhaustion. And I do keep a really close eye on what happened to me last year. I keep a close eye on my physical health, right? But you know, I'm exhausted with it all, Todd, and I do get pissed off and fed up with it. And I do have a word often with my deeper, higher self to say, what the flipping heck is going on, old chap? But strangely enough, and I know that you know what I'm talking about here. If you go a bit deeper, it says, "Don't worry, everything's in order.
Yeah,
Stop being so
yeah.
impatient."
It
Right?
is. It
If you,
is. Yeah,
yeah,
it
yeah,
is. It is. It's just that. Okay, I don't know how to say this, but it's just gone so fast and so furious. I remember the first part of the year, I kept saying it's going to be a hot summer. It's going to be a hot summer, and sure enough, it was. And that's a good thing. But it's like the Cali burn it off hot summer thing, and it's moved so fast that it's very unnerving to the human aspect. So if it's unnerving to me and it's unnerving to you, then when we try to talk, what's it gonna be? It's so it's almost like different way to communicate. What? Just be direct, be honest, be straight up, whether they like it or not, and everyone does that. I mean, I think that's close.
I agree, Todd, and I think people are tending to be more energy sort of. What's the word I'm looking for? They're more sort of tuned into energy and not wasting energy so foolishly now. And in long drawn out stories, right,
Yeah.
they're disappearing now. We're almost becoming very zen and sometimes not even necessary to say anything at all
Right.
because people who are on a sort of similar wavelength tend to naturally watch out for non-verbal cues and really understand things by just looking in each other's eyes, really, without saying words,
I agree with
because
that.
I get a sense of the way I live my life is I sense and I feel energies, and that's what I use, as a sort of evaluation system. It's not a judgment system as such. It's more like feeling my way forward and sticking out my aura or whatever this is. I don't want to get confused in labeling things and stuff like that, but just I have a sense that my heart goes out and feels its way through things. And there's some people I go, heart goes out, meet them, it rebounds, and it makes me feel disturbed. Now, I don't go into, oh, that must be something in me now that needs clearing. It's like a sonar, boop, 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 and it comes back. And that's an indication from my soul. No, that person isn't resonant, or you're not resonant with their particular purpose at this moment.
Right.
So you don't need to engage with them. However, next week, they may be the person that you need, so I've said this to you many times before, and I know it can only be one moment at a time, because everything's changing that quickly, that we have to sort of sense, or I sense one moment at a time and be willing to change my mind or allow my mind to be changed from one breath to the next. And that's the way I navigate through life. And being here with you now, right, I feel open, it's flowing, I'm not making anything up, I don't feel tense, it's lovely to see you. I know that you've been through a lot of shit. So have I, so have I,
Yeah.
and I could sort of sense, mate, without knowing what was going on or even wanting to know what was going on personally, because that's not important to me. I could sort of sense you were going through shit, right? And all I can do is say, send love out to him if he needs it and give him a bit of a boost, And Todd, what I got with your situation, even though I don't know the bones of it and I don't want to, it's not important to me. I got a sense of, right, that you had to go back and revisit places almost like to neutralize what had gone on previously, because there were bits of it that you didn't quite get. So you had to go back. And not only that, it was to be put back into the situation where all your senses could be utilized, because I think we've become very audio visual, and so we've missed out on the smells and the tastes and the touches. So that's a full multimodal, multi-sensory re-evaluation of what's gone on before. Just let me say this because I'm on the flow, right? These situations aren't the same, but they're environmentally similar. And that's what we have to neutralize. We have to be put into not quite the same, but close enough. Then all the cues come up then to be looked at with almost a recognition. I see that bit there. I never missed that. I did it. And then once that's all been neutralized, that part of the story goes, and then we get moved to the next scene.
Yeah.
What do you think about that then? Did that sound reasonable?
That was spot on. And I think, there's a lot to be said for people retracing their steps and closing things out. And so whatever the the energetic repercussions of that, I don't know, but it feels like to me that it was like, how did I get this? It was kind of like this. The universe made a deal with us. The you, me, we, and it said, you want to go down to Earth? Here's the deal. We will promise you that you will get to a certain level of awareness. And once you get to that point of awareness, we will collaborate with you, but we will not do it for you. We will make no guarantees after that. It's what's up to you now. And I feel like that's where we're at. Or maybe where we're about to get to, or what we just got to. I don't know. But it's like, okay, you got everything you need. Even though you may not be conscious of it all, it's all there. It'll be available to you. It's up to you now. And and I feel like that what you're describing for me personally, and I think it's more as collective as well, is that we were like closing everything out, tying up all the loose ends, and cleaning up the thing to then move forward with a clean slate. That's how I'd put it.
Couldn't agree more, mate. And the way I see it is tubes. It's like tubes. We're like fuses. The human being to me is like a fuse wire. and we receive information from the cosmos, but we're also connected to Mother Earth as well. So there's Father, Son, and Mother Earth, and we've been short-circuited, and our energy, or the energy that's been working through us for various reasons, manipulation of the gene codes and all that sort of business, the energy's come through, but has been misdirected by faulty programs within the human mind. And I think what happens is, as the energy's coming in more and more powerfully, what's actually happening is more pain comes. And if what I learned a long time ago is, Todd, if I feel emotionally disturbed, it's either a short circuit and a full blockage, or it's a misdirection of this energy. So in order to become more useful to the whole purpose of this universal thing, we have to be realigned. Now, we don't realign ourselves, in my view, and I could be totally wrong, and it's okay if I find out I'm wrong, but we don't get realigned by thinking, oh, I'm out of alignment here, I need to jump over here and fix this. That's the wrong thing, because I think then we go back and forward in our left and right brain, and we're always bouncing from one side to the other, and there's never ever any balance. So what we need to do is let go totally of that bipolarity, or even the multipolarity that's in the brain. Let go of it and go into our heart. And in that process of surrender, I don't mean giving in or anything like that. The surrender is getting out of the way, so this equilibration comes naturally by itself. That, to me, is the realignment process. And what the hell are we realigning with? We're realigning with the primal template of what it is to be fully human. Over to you, old bean.
Well, I mean, what can I say to that? I mean, it's such a humbling experience. And I joke about this, like the whole I'm good, I'm okay, or my friend 2 days ago told me I'm good, man, I'm just chill, and then the next day he was on his back. I mean, like I'm like you, I try to laugh about as much of this as possible. I actually feel pretty good, given all the stuff that went through this summer. I actually, it was like I was made for it or something. So, that's another thing that's happening too, I think. And that's not about me, that's about everybody. I think given all the stuff that's happening, it's already been happening. And I'm talking about the internal fluctuations and the, the ebb and flow of, hang on a second, did something happen? Let me look here. We're still good? Yeah. That as all this stuff is happening, the amount, and we've talked about this before, but it's a whole other ballgame now, but the amount and frequency of information or epiphany is mind-blowing. So, like, you can be going through all kinds of stuff, yet you're getting more clarity, you have more understanding. There's some kind of natural phenomena with your body being a little bit more at ease, or I can't explain it. It's almost like a new organ or a new sensitivity has been physically or is being physically installed that changes the dynamics of all the other senses. You know what I mean? In a good way. I can't really explain it, but something's going on. I don't want to leave. I'm kidding about going to leaving Las Vegas thing, but yeah, you mentioned patience, I think, a minute ago. Things, to me, the patience comes easier. Yep. And I didn't have anything to do with that. I didn't have to go, I'm going to be more patient. It's just like, you just know what's going on. You know that we're not just doing this. It's more than that. And yeah, like you said, it probably is in our best interest or would serve us to lose all that other stuff and just be this. Even though this isn't it, all of it.
See, it sounds like sort of guru speak this, doesn't it? Because it's hard to explain what's going on. But I know that I feel similar to your feelings as well, that the energy is increasing and the flow is increasing as well. And in that flow, it's almost cleansing away the stuff that doesn't work anymore to be replaced by new creative potentials that we've never experienced before. So we're new to it. So we've actually got to take the action to practice this new stuff that's coming through. And people talk about the move from carbon to crystalline and all that. I keep open to everything now, Todd, because I've learned such such a lot, even in the last 3 years, has just been piling in. And I do believe that there is a 15th sort of structural time dimension that's going on, right? Of which 12 of those aspects or dimensions are now being open to the human being. Each one of those represents a different frequency, increasing in vibration and frequency. Each one of those is a different stream of consciousness. This has been explained before by maybe the Christ, which I think is the 13th dimensional structure, right? And the 14th and the 15th, and this is just the way I see it at the moment, is the Christ is the 13th, it's the holy golden child, the Christos, or, and then we've got the 14th to
Keep
me.
going. I gotta keep going. I gotta let UPS in. Keep going.
Yeah. So the 14th to me is the male, or not the male, the masculine, and the 15th dimensional structure is the actual feminine, the sacred feminine. And I think that the last three components of this 15th dimensional structure, right, they're accessible to us, but they're called pre-material or pre-matter. See, I mean, this is stuff I've never knew before, but it's part of something called Keylontic science. And I look at it like I look at everything else. I try and weigh it up, put it into my heart, and I say, is this something that's important to me that I need to know? And I get, no, you don't need to know it, Joe. You feel this, right? But if you're enthusiastic about it and it interests you, why don't you find out more? And then when you get more information, act upon it, because it's knowledge. Knowledge acted upon becomes experience, which becomes wisdom, right?
Thank you.
Other than that, it's just knowledge. And that's where I was for years. I was a knowledgeable idiot, Todd. I know all, knows no, and that's what somebody told me once. Somebody who helped me more than I can imagine, because I wanted to kill him at the time. He said, Joe, you're nothing but a knowledgeable idiot.
Yeah. Educated,
he said,
educated derelict. Yeah, I used to say educated derelict. That's interesting that you said that too, because years ago, like when I was on the streets, and I was talking about it yesterday, that wisdom is knowledge plus action, right? Like you got to do something with it. And I feel like what we were talking about earlier, like where are we at, and that whole thing about the universe saying, hey, I'm going to make sure that you guys get to a certain level of awareness, and the rest is up to you. So that's the knowledge. The awareness is really something we already had, and whatever, we had to get the memory back, whatever, we have enough awareness. Now the action is going to create this wisdom, which is this new code, right? It's like not been done before, which is kind of cool. But let me ask you this, because we've done a lot of shows together. In fact, I think I've done more shows with you than anyone but Franco, and we did 52. And I know the whole thing, we repeat things, I repeat things over and over, but man, I sure feel like I feel like whatever happened this summer truly we went beyond a real tipping point, and that we'll see real evidence of what's going on that will become virtually undeniable as soon as maybe the spring of this coming year. I just feel like it's here. It's got to be here, which is why you had the conversations you did with your team, and I had them with my team, which is like, come on, man, like, we're worn the F out here. But at the same time, that information's coming in, and by some weird thing that everything is just fine. It's weird.
Rudyard Kipling wrote a poem called If, and he talks about being totally and utterly exhausted, right? When every nerve and sinew are basically worn out. He said, and basically what he was saying, see, when I do this and I get in line with the truth, what happens is my spine starts to tingle, my head opens, and I get a big rush going up my head. So that's always an indication to me is, that's it, son, you're right in line, keeps talking, that's the only, and Todd, I don't know what that is. I don't know whether there's some great big archangel behind me going, go ahead, son, tell him, and when he's using me as some sort of ventriloquist model or, or stuff like that. But as far as I'm concerned, Christ is reputed to have said, I am and my Father are one. He's not saying I am God. He's saying that I have the same attributes, right, as the Creator, right? And even Jesus is reputed again to have said, although I never met him, but he seemed like a decent chap, right? He said, there'll be people coming along in the future who can do far better tricks than me, right? And I think that's us, Todd. I think that we're in a position now where at this time in this 3D reality or density, this first harmonic universe that we're in, I think what's happening is we've never had an opportunity like this now to sort of let go and be flushed out in all these 12 consciousness streams just to see what it brings. And I think it brings a different skill, a different attribute, but you've got to do it, to practice it, to become good at it, I think. And I think that, I believe in something called collective individuality, where we're all following the same path, right, but in different ways. I know it's a sort of one of those oxymorons, that really, or a sort of paradoxical thing to say, but I believe that each soul, and I've said this to you before, has a specific frequency that's part of the orchestra of the whole business. And if anything's out of tune, it's up to the rest of us really to send our vibrations to sort of entrain their out of tunement and bring them back in line. There we are. I've got no idea. Like when I come on here, I think
that was good, man. That was good. I'm like just.
But all like, I think there's one big tuning fork, right? That sets up a particular resonant frequency. That's the primal vibration. And I think we're all trying to let go and be drawn into that there for that collective good of humanity. And I think there are sort of unscrupulous, nefarious types, and whether they be sort of fallen Nephilim from 56 million years ago or whatever, right, who've constructed some sort of draconian matrix that's trying to push this, because that's all the stuff I read, and I go, is this true? And I go, what do you think? Yeah, it's possible. Right, well, read a bit more and you'll find a bit more information out if you want to. Do I have to? No, not really.
Right.
Just go with your feelings, Joe. Go with your feelings, right? Because you could be bored with this next week looking at something else, like Robert Sefer or something like that, So because I've looked at all his stuff, and he's brilliant. I like him. He's a cool dude, right? And he eats some weird food as well, because you get like a whole, you get like a whole sort of buffet of what he's eating today in Santa Monica Pier and all.
Yeah. Bubba Gump.
What I'm trying to say is, Todd, in honesty, if I'm feeling disturbed, what I do now is stop, reconnect with me breathing, reconnect with me body, and say, how do I feel? Bit tense. Breathe out. Breathe in the light and breathe out the shite. And that's where I've come to. Breathe in the light, collect all the guns that's built up.
Shite.
And just, and breathe it out. And that's SHYTE, But shaitan in Arabic means the devil, it means evil, right? And that's where that root
I didn't know that.
From. No, I didn't. I was told that, whether it's true or not, but it seems to sort of resonate with me. But what I'm saying, Todd, is, and I know you said it early on this morning, I woke up at 2:30 this morning, as clear as anything, and I put your iPad on, and I go, oh, look, there's Todd, right? That was this morning. Yeah, and then I listened to a bit of it, and then it made me go to sleep again.
Well, that was a 6-hour broadcast, so I don't know what part you came in. But I remember when I saw you come in, we were laughing with you. So how about, well, first of all, this past year, this is like a huge year for you. If this was 1 year tomorrow when you had the heart situation, how are you, not because, I'm not asking like you personally, but I am asking you, just to try to get a feel for what's happening with people. Are you getting as triggered as you were a year ago, or whatever degree that triggering might have been? Are you seeing any change in your daily human interactions? Is it softer? Is it harder? Is it more frequent? Is it less frequent? You know what I mean? Like, is there anything, any nuances, any rhythms in the daily life that you can tell are changing that are more in the human, right? It's not a etherical thing, it's a human thing.
Yeah, I've become more multimodal, right? And definitely, because from one day I can stand up for myself and say, I'm not taking that anymore. And then the next day I can be more so-called compassionate. Words are difficult because they sort of generally relate to certain things that people have ideas on. And I begin to realize is what I thought was compassion isn't. Right. Something I've learned this, there's a complete difference between sympathy, empathy, and compassion.
Right.
Sympathy is a head knowledge of something. It's when somebody can imagine what you're going through. So there's that sort of dimension. Empathy is when you can actually feel and you can sort of resonate, to use that word, with somebody else's feelings. So you've got that feeling state and you can actually attach to that and feel it, right? Compassion is to be detached with love. It doesn't mean that you don't feel the feelings. It just means that you don't let their feelings get attached to you. And I honestly think that's what the benefit of a true health professional is, to see, to feel where the person's at from an energetic point of view, but not to get sucked in almost like psychic vampirism. And what I've tried, what was told to me is by my sponsor. He said to me, Joe, he said, if you feel emotionally disturbed, it can't be the divine part of you, because that's fearless and it can't get disturbed. So therefore, Joe, what must it be? And I'll say, is it ego? He said, that's right. It's called egocentricity. Mm-hmm. Right. And he said things to me so bluntly, right? And I thought he was so cruel at the time, but he highlighted in me the things that were in my unconscious that were attaching to words and so-called patterns and everything else. And what I've learned, Todd, is the answer to true peace of mind is beyond mind. It's beyond mind. It's got nothing to do with logical or intellectual processing. It's to do with not being attached to memory anymore. And that's where I feel that the wheel of karma is. That's where all those things. So when you actually transcend it, I think people transcend it by going deeper. It seems to be, to me, a deeper sort of thing where you let go and get into this neutral 0 point. I think that's what it is. You're not relating or attaching to any prior memory. So therefore, right, in that position, does that make sense? So in that position, you're not being automatically triggered then by a prior scenario.
Well, you've got no point of reference, no point of contact.
Exactly.
Yeah. That's what Franco talked about. Franco talked about this. He talked about that it would just fade away.
And we've talked about this. We've talked about this actually 2 years ago. It's a point called choiceless awareness. You don't have to go, shall I do this or shall I do that? Is it this or is it that? The answer is, it's not this, it's not that, it's the other. And the other is a point of calm. It's a place of calm. It's a plateau. It's a place where you're fully aware of everything that's going on, but it's still. And I said to you a couple of years ago, and when I said it, I thought, I wonder what that means, because what comes out of me gob, I have to go and like loop it round and listen to it again, because I'm hardly sure of what's coming out. And whether that's channeling, I don't know, or whether it's I've got no idea, and I can't even be asked trying to work it out anymore. You know, but say if it's an evil entity that's trying to dupe people into like having a happy life. Fair enough, right? But what I'm trying to say is, Todd, all this stuff that I used to be afraid of, I'm not afraid of anything anymore. I'm not afraid of whether I've got implants in, whether there's some evil force attached to me and all that, because
I'm with you there.
I think underneath all this, Todd, must be an omnipotent, a powerful aspect, right, that can just go like that. And the way I describe it is, it's like the cow, you know, when a fly lands on a cow's bottom and its tail goes, that's how I see it now. Stuff lands on me.
Oh, yeah.
And it's almost
dust
like,
off your shoulder.
It's just like, off you go, not interested. And here's the next thing, this is what I learned. They talk about mindfulness, and mindfulness is described of taking notice. But I talk about beyond mindfulness, and it's taking no effing notice. It's not giving it any energy at all. It's just getting on with what you really feel that you want to do, and basically not ignoring it because you're totally aware of it. It's paying no heed. Or as Jesus, again, is reputed to have said, just turn the other cheek. Over to you, son.
So if this stuff is fading away, these past occurrences, like you were saying, like if I say something to you and you get triggered, it's probably it is associated with something that happened before, or some things that happened before, right? So if those things are going away, because you're a doctor, right? 5,000 years of whatever civilization, we can't figure out mental illness to include the basic prognoses and then the disorders, which I think there's like 15 disorders now, you know. If those things are all going away, I would think those points of reference are going away that you know are the root of our triggers. I would imagine that this is going to totally alter the mental health thing, because you know what I mean. Because these people are more inclined to be, what did you say a minute ago?
Choiceless awareness.
Choiceless awareness. Yeah.
Yeah.
They're more in tune with that type of, most of them, I would think. You know, they're just different, right? And they didn't fit because we were all mired in the muck. They didn't even have that capacity. You know, I know there's different, but you know what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the natural chemical makeup of somebody. The Heokas and the ones that the indigenous and aboriginals revered because they knew they had it, you know, a direct line or whatever you want to call it. But it would seem like that would change and alter the whole landscape of what we call mental health, you know, the mental health industry.
Yeah, because mental health, in my view, is it's a symptom. The mental ill health, really, mental misalignment, it's a symptom of the root cause, which is a spiritual misalignment. So it's really to do with the soul. Everything manifests, as you know, in this etheric formative force, you know, sort of plasma era. You know, that's where it's all going on, right? And we sort of incarnate and we come down through all the different densities and we appear here on Earth. Well, we've picked up all sorts of gunge on the way down, and I think it's our sort of job is to first of all clean the side of our streets so that we can understand what we're talking about, and then it's basically try and help other people as well. I honestly believe that there's a lot of people like ourselves, and we're not special or anything like that. It's just that we might have chosen to be sort of waste showers. I think I'm a waste shower, and I don't care about whether anybody thinks I'm an egomaniac or not. So be it. But I think that we're sort of the spearhead. And as a consequence, we're getting battered as well, right? And we're then having to turn around to say, watch out for that, everybody. Just turn left here. There's a bit of trouble coming up. So we're almost like leaders in the field without being anything special, you know, because the different people have different skills and attributes. And that's all part of the recombination, really, and the defragmentation to put us up. I see it's like Humpty Dumpty. All the king's horses and all the king's men couldn't put Humpty back together again. They had to sort of let go and allow this evolutionary collective force to put us back together as well. You know, I've got no idea what I'm talking about. It sounds good. Sounds good.
Sounds fantastic. Sounds fantastic, man. Yeah, I feel like, I mean, we got, what, 2.5 months left for this year?
Yeah.
I mean, I just feel like this. I personally feel like where I'm at right now is getting, you know, I'm getting things going. I'm not rushing. I'm taking baby steps. Every step I take is a little baby step. That's not normally my style, but I feel like there's going to be a huge opportunity to pull the trigger as soon as December. And that's kind of where I'm headed. But because of the intensity, and, you know, for the human, for me anyway, even given everything that happened, it was very high energy. I was very aware of the multidimensional stuff happening and all that. And that's really, and I guess the previous experiences I had, it was very easy for me to go through it. It just wasn't that difficult. But it once I got everything handled and I came back here to Sedona to go to work, I hit the wall. And I mean, it's just like slammed me. And I feel like all time stopped. I took 6 days off, and I just feel like everything got wiped clean. And that's not a bad thing. You know, everything gets wiped clean. It's only the parts of the things that were there that weren't real get wiped away, and what's real remains, right? So, but my feeling is I feel tender, a little bit raw, and I'm just taking ginger baby steps, but I'm taking steps, you know. I mean, we did 6 hours of broadcasting 6+ hours 3 days in a row, and today we'll do it again. Just a little bit instead of going and flipping it on 24 hours a day tomorrow, right? You know what I mean? Like just a little bit. I don't want to do the whole. You know how we had kind of 2 steps up, 1 step back, right?
Yeah.
Like ebb and flow. I know there's an ebb and flow, but I don't feel like going 2 steps up, 1 back anymore. I feel like I can take a baby step, and I feel like I'm saying that because I feel like that's the energetic potential and pattern that we have at our disposal.
I think I've allowed myself over my lifetime to be influenced by the timings of others. I think the time pressure is massive, really, especially in this Western world where you've introduced with new technology, which is always about speeding up, quicker. I think a real sort of step of not resistance as such, but it does cause resistance, is to say, hang on a second, I just need a little bit more time to think about that. Right. Thanks very much indeed for asking me, but I'll get back to you in a couple of days. Now, what happens then is egomaniacs, right, who need it done there and then, they get belligerent then.
Yeah.
And what they do is you can feel the energy coming up in like a violent, and they go, oh, okay then, yeah, but if you could possibly hurry it along a little bit. And when you don't, and then they say, well, it might take a bit longer than we think, and then they start to get really angry then.
Wow, this is real stuff, man. I mean, we joked about this before, but like, because I would tell you about, I can't handle all my emails and messages, but yeah, you know what? And you know what? All that kind of died for me. I didn't really, until like Soulogy Fest and you get thrown in jail and then everybody sends you a message. But I have noticed this recently, that you're saying this. That thing, or maybe it's just me, but that thing has come back where if you don't answer right away, you start to get some pushback. And I thought, wow, that's interesting. Why is that back? But I do realize there's a lot of various and mass fluctuations going on within ourselves and all over the place. So there is a lot of all over the place. But I going back to what you said about compassion, I've been saying this on the show since somebody came on last week and said it. They just said the words compassion. Compassion is no judgment, and it just went off in my head. And I went, whoa, that's all you got to say. Because when I would think of compassion, I would think of sympathy and empathy, and even pity, could be at some level. But to say, what is compassion? No judgment. And that ever since then, which was about 10 days ago, I've really focused on that every day as an individual. Like it's starting to enter my conscious, present moment by moment thought. Not every time, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying I'm actually writing stuff and deleting it, thinking of stuff, not saying it, because what's happening is, you think compassion for others, which is obvious, but it's not. It's compassion for myself, right? So what's happening is instead of me going, God, this is a good situation. I guess I can talk about it because I'm already half out of my body. Neil Delaney, my friend's coming on this afternoon. I was doing a show yesterday, and he started dropping some F-bombs and directing them at me and telling me, you don't know what the fuck you're talking about. That's BS. I said, that's fine. Here's the link. Come on in. Let's talk. So he ended up saying, hey, can we come on tomorrow? I said, yeah, fine. Well, my first reaction, what was I saying? I know what it was. It was about AI. My views on AI aren't what a lot of people might embrace. But instead of taking a hard stance, I'm talking internally, I just went, wait a minute, now what are you saying? How important is it? What lengths are you willing to go to defend it? I mean, it was this myriad of different questions, of self-examination that I can tell you straight up 2 weeks ago, before I got that epiphany, I would not have gone there. And it would have been undetectable and unconscious because I would have just went, who the fuck does he think he is? you know. But instead, and so here we go again. When I heard that compassion is not judgment, I immediately extrapolated that to the external, like my mirrors, my friends, right, or whoever. But it became apparent. It became part of my self-examination. I can now have these questions asked of myself internally because I do have compassion. So I'm not going to be in judgment of myself, because what I found was, if I'm in judgment, I don't go there because I don't want to judge myself, right? I know it sounds bizarre, but I had this happen numerous times in the last 10 days. And it just happened to me yesterday. It was a really big one. And it was on the most trivial issue. And I just went, it's okay. You know what I mean? It's all right. You know what I mean? It's okay. And it's weird because it's brought me like this weird kind of, just this weird comfort. So I can actually ask myself, do you have this tendency? Are you this? Are you that? And actually have these answers come back without, something attached to it now. Like I'm not mean, or I'm not greedy, or whatever it is that I'm going through. I can actually question myself now because I'm not in judgment. It's weird. I can't explain it. And it's got to be in the water. I mean, it can't just be me.
I agree. I understand. And that's basically what we've been saying, is that we're being flushed away of the triggers. That the hooks are in there just waiting to be. It's like taking the bait, isn't it? It's the thing that takes the bait, mostly in our unconscious now, because consciously we're sort of tuned into a lot of stuff. But there's 4/5 under the surface that we're still not aware of. Yeah. So what's actually happening is the triggers that are closest to the surface now are coming up. We can say, oh yeah. So the way I get over this, Todd, is I say to you is, how do you see this, Todd? What's your view of this? Okay. And I'm asking you. And so you tell me. Now, if I say, well, I don't see it like that. Right. Well, thanks very much. And then you move on then without any judgment. You say, oh, Todd sees it that way because he's looking out of this universal eyes that way. He's got that perspective. Right. I see it slightly different. Or actually, I see it completely different. But isn't it a strange world? We've all got a different view. We've all got different ideas. What's the truth? Who knows? So you just say to somebody, how do you see it? But if you kick in and say, you're not right, there's the judgment.
Yeah, and
because
even...
if you say you're not right, you must be working off some internal template or standard or structure. That's based on some memory pattern matching scenario that's associated with the judgment from the past. And if we're living in the moment, there's no association or attachment at all to anything that's in the memory. Just let me do this next bit.
Right? Keep going.
And that's where fear comes in. Fear comes in because we have to emotionally react to defend ourselves. The technical term for that's called the defense arousal response. So any fight or flight response that comes in means we must have judged it at depth in order to defend ourselves. And Todd, when you get to a point where you don't have to explain yourself to anybody or defend anything at all, then you're free, aren't you? Then you're completely free. You don't have to defend yourself because you're not afraid of anything anymore, because something in you, is powerful enough to deal with any situation that comes along. Isn't that what true freedom is?
Dude, you just spit it all out, man. I wasn't worried. God, that was really good. Yeah, because like what you were saying, like the whole... and again, I'm having this conversation with myself, right? I know that's going to carry over to the conversations that I have. But what I'm really, I get a bit tired of the whole masculine feminine thing. Masculine feminine is not male female. I'm sorry, you can not like what I'm saying, whatever. But I do see that you can call it the patriarchal, you can call it distorted masculine or distorted male or something. I don't know. But this that we're talking about right now, this need to be right, this holding on to the positions and the beliefs, which is really holding on to a false identity, right? I think it'd be more of a patriarchal. I would probably feel more comfortable using that word, because I'm seeing this in men and women, and I'm seeing it more in men, I believe, because that the male, I don't know, we have a different path than the women, but the male has had more to give up. I guess you could put it that way. And of course, people, this isn't conscious. This is just the way things go, and having to let go of it all. I was telling the previous guest how I got this download like 3 days ago, and I was coming through the canyon here in Sedona, and they start showing me how a lot of males are running to porn right now, and they're running to old behaviors for their sexual distraction and distortion, right? Because the Father God's come home. And the real divine masculine is permeating into everything and everyone, regardless of gender. But I see that, and I see that as a good sign. And I have a feeling, because I got this download last night, that that we're actually going to start to see some real-time transformation of physical males that go, oh, I was wrong about that. Or... Yeah. And again, this isn't just about males. There's going to be an impact or a reaction from that action, just as there was from females making certain strides and put pressure on, right? But yeah, so for some reason, I feel like that's a really good sign when people can start going, I was wrong, I own up to what I did and said. And then after all it's discussed and everything, we both look at each other, or all of us look at each other and go, and it ain't nothing but a thing. It's not even coming with us, right? But there's something about acknowledging it that allows you not to take it with you, right? It's a very human thing. And from a multidimensional aspect, a very mundane function, right? Or action. Like boring even. Like I'm in the flesh and bones already. Now I got to go over here and, get called out on the carpet, call myself out on the carpet and be honest about my bullshit. It's weird. But anyway.
I'm sort of at the stage now, because I went through the process in Alcoholics Anonymous of clearing my side of the street. And it's ruthless. It's ruthless. You make a list of all persons you've harmed, and you become willing to make amends to them directly.
Yes.
So I had to go and search people out, Todd, that I'd hurt, right? And this is in sort of working it out with my sponsor, who was an older, wiser member. And he said, Joe, you don't go back to old girlfriends and all that sort of business. He said, because they'll have a life now, and you don't. He said, but he would sit with an open heart, and I would tell him, here's a person I hurt, and he'd get a feeling for it. Yes, you need to go and find them, seek them out, and apologize to them face to face. Todd, it was terrifying. I was shit scared every time, and I'd knock on a door, and I'd be trembling in my boots, and they'd open the door. What do you want? I've just come to say I've started to realise that I'd hurt you, and I didn't understand, and I didn't see it. And most of them said, Joe, don't worry. You were a lovely, lovely man until you got drink down you, and then you were a pain in the arse and one horrible twat. Right. And I go, thank you for that. And the most important thing was that you didn't argue or retaliate. You just say, or this is what I said, well, if there's anything at all I can do to set it right, please tell me what it is, and I'll do my best to do it. And most of them said, we're glad you're getting better. Look after yourself. Now, there were some people who said, never darken my fucking door again, right? You horrible bastard. I went back to my sponsor, right? And I said to him, and they were horrible to me and all that. He said, Joe, did you apologise, and did you say that you would offer anything at all if it could be put right? Yes. Doesn't matter what they did. You've done it. And Todd, every time I did it, right, I was proving to the universe that I was willing to go to any lengths to clean my side of the street. Right. It was ruthless. But you know what, mate? It was absolutely necessary for me, because until I did it, and I couldn't leave a single thing in there, right, because I was always in danger if I left anything out at all, that would bring back and sort of agglutinize all the shit that I got rid of, and it bring it all back in, and I was in danger of picking a drink up again. So it's intimately connected with being honest, being fearless, and all
Yeah.
that. Now, Todd, there were some people I couldn't say sorry to. And, I can spot a narcissist a mile off. Why? Because that's what I was like for ages. I was a secondary narcissist, not a primary narcissist. There's a difference between a primary and secondary narcissist. A primary narcissist hasn't developed fully and still sort of engaged in a reptilian outlook, really. So they've not known any sort of social bipolarity, really. They've just got one way, completely psychopathic and narcissistic, right? But secondary narcissism is emotionally sensitive people,
Right.
right? They develop a shield because they're oversensitive to other people's energies. This is so important, this.
It is.
And in order to do that, they've got to get to a point where a rock bottom where they say, I need to find a different way of living. And that's all about cleaning your side of the street. And there's a specific way of doing it. And I'd recommend it to anybody, but it's the most difficult thing in the world. And Todd, that's what I do as a sponsor. And as a sponsor, people come to me and I can smell out ego a mile off. Why? Because I can detect it in myself as well.
Right.
And when I see narcissism now when I see that, it's not because there's a narcissist in me. I'm aware of that now, but I can still sense the energy that goes with it. Okay.
Because
And
you've
people
owned it.
don't-
Because you own it in yourself too. Right.
Absolutely. And yourself, when you've owned it in yourself, you can spot it a mile off in everybody else. That's the gift, Todd. That's the gift. And that's why we become helpful. I
We
was a
sh-
right horrible person in drink. I was violent. I was offensive.
I can't
was
even see you violent, man. I would have kicked your ass,
No, no.
bro.
Honest to God, Todd, I've wrecked houses. I've terrified my children. I did all that in
Oh
drinking.
wow! I
and
didn't.
mostly-
I didn't realize that to that degree. Hey, we should do a show this weekend on cleaning up our side of the street. Like, I like to hear what because you said you have a method, and but like even just to dig into that, because that really makes sense. And I've never heard of this whole primary secondary thing either. But I think that term is used, in a derogatory. There's just a derogatory connotation with the term narcissist. We're all narcissists. We all have narcissist frequencies. But to hear somebody say there is a group, there is a large group that probably overlays on all of us to some degree or another, of a highly sensitive person who's going through this complexity, and I think that's a very good statement. That's a very warm statement, and I'd like to know about that. I think that would be helpful to people. How do you clean up your side of the street? How do you see the things in yourself that you don't see? What are all? Yeah.
In simple terms, Todd, this is where I'm up to. And once again, might be totally wrong, could be barking up the wrong tree, all that sort of business.
Right.
But what I've learned is, and this is something called the triune brain. So there's like a Trinitarian brain, right? And the first part of our development is in basically the stem of the brain. It's the reptilian part of the brain, well known. But then as humans develop, we then bifurcate then into the left and right hemispheres, and then we crisscross over then, and that's called social constructivism, right? And then what's supposed to happen in a balanced way is we come out the top, out the crown of our head, and then we've gained our wings then. But what actually happens is somewhere in the middle of that social component, right, we become afraid. And if you're really, really emotionally sensitive, this is midbrain stuff, right? If you're emotionally sensitive, you'll create a very, very strong and rigid defense mechanism. And that's what the problem is. We've got vitality that's trying to get out, but it's actually banging against the walls that we've created and created all this emotional disturbance in us. And because we're emotionally disturbed, because we're fearful and we can't express ourselves fully, we look to things that might temporarily disinhibit us, like drink and drugs and everything else. So temporarily, they make us open up and we get this big flush of I'm free. But then when we've got no drink or drugs, the shield comes back in. Does this make some sort of sense?
Makes
So
a lot of
ideally,
sense. Makes a
okay,
lot of
well,
sense.
ideally, I'll shut up in a minute, but ideally, what's supposed to happen is we have to then go step by step through the things that we're afraid of because we're a little emotionally sensitive child, right? If you don't like working with the inner child, you can call it emotional disability, basically, and insecurity. We have to, as fully grown humans, we have to go one step at a time, and as you said, gingerly approach the world, but no running around the fences anymore. It's stepping through it, and every time you step through it, one of the layers or the shields, that's what apocalyptic is, it dissolves, and the energy that was keeping it in place is, we feel new power flow in, we become more vital, we start to get like, wow, this is good, this. And then you go in to seek people out that you've heard to say, look, I'm so sorry about that. I didn't see what I was doing. I really apologize, and I hope you'll let me off the hook. And if you don't, I don't care because I'm letting myself off the hook. Right, I'll shut it now. Come on, mate.
No, we're good. I got to jump on the next show. We should do one this weekend, though. This is a great subject. I think this is a really good subject. It's that mundane human part of it, in contrast to our multidimensionality that I'm talking about. I think that's a great subject.
All
I think it's a great subject.
We'll try and knock something up. And don't
Well,
forget, I'm only learning myself as we go along.
no, but this is good stuff. And and when I say you're a doctor, I'm talking about you're. It's not the degrees. It's the whole thing, right? So to be able to talk on a nuts and bolts level, because there's a lot of that going on. There's a lot of as you've seen in the past in these light worker communities where there's a lot of projection and a lot of debate and a lot of argument, and it's all ego. This is you, it's me, it's all of us. So how do we clean up our side of the street? I have some questions for that. So yeah, if you're around this weekend, I'm going to be working every day until I drop, in a few days. But so I'll hit you up though, or vice versa.
Okay, mate. I'm around, so
Okay.
yeah.
I mean, I don't have
Give us a
anything. I don't have anything tacked down, but I'll probably be doing 10, 12 hours of broadcasting Saturday and Sunday. So, yeah. But I'll get with you, and then we'll put up a post so people will know. Maybe put up a little information about it.
All right, mate.
All right, brother. Love you. Thank you. I enjoyed
you
it.
too.
Best.